the details. But to get started, we want to talk about what are fossils, why do we find them here in Florida, and how do they form. So first off, fossils are essentially bone. It's bone turned to stone, really, and it takes a really long time. So most fossils need at least 10,000 years or so to fossilize.
And is that true for animal fossils and plant fossils both?
Yes.
Okay.
So everybody needs a long time to fossilize, and how fossilization happens, there's a lot of methods, but the one we most tend to think of is called permineralization. And there's kind of 4 steps to that. The first is an animal or a plant has to die, and then it has to be very quickly. And this is the key, and this is why less than 1% of all plants and animals become fossil.
Oh, wow.
Is because they don't get very quickly. So the enemy of fossilization is decay and oxygen.
Okay.
So if an animal can be buried quickly and it can be preserved as best as possible, that's the best. And then over time, sediment and soils kind of bury this animal or this plant deeper and deeper. And eventually the pressure above it is so strong that it turns to rock.
Okay.
And all the soil around it turns to rock. And then eventually groundwater will seep in and it will actually replace all of the organic carbon material in the bones and turn it to stone. So what we're really seeing is almost like a mold or a cast of what was there. So,
oh, that's cool.
yeah, so the bone is gone, and so it's bone turned to stone.
I always thought that water was like the enemy of preservation. I didn't realize that it actually helped with
It actually
fossilization.
helps. And that's part of why we have
That's
so many
interesting.
fossils here in Florida. So anywhere where sediment is deposited quickly is really great for fossils. So places like that are in sinkholes, where water and land meet, where it's swampy, and so basically all of Florida is great for fossils. So, and there's really 2 kinds of fossils. So we have body fossils, which are the bones, the teeth, the hard parts, the actual stuff of the animal. So some common examples of that are, of course, teeth. So teeth are really the strongest part of our body, thanks to the enamel on the outside. So that's what really helps keep it preserved. So we have some examples of some teeth here, like these 2. Sure, I'll walk through a little bit. So these are 2 teeth from this is a Mastodon tooth, and this is a Mammoth tooth. So you can see that they are a little bit different, and I should mention this is just 1 tooth from each animal. These guys were really big. And so, but these guys ate different things. So they get mixed up a lot, but mammoths are these guys. They ate lots of grasses, and so you can see they had really flat teeth to kind of grind down those grasses. And then this guy is a mastodon tooth. And so mastodons were eating twigs and leaves and branches, and so they had all these little areas to kind of break that down. So this is kind of the big difference between mastodons and mammoths. Some other teeth that we have are, we have some horse teeth here. Horses were very common here in Florida during the Pleistocene, which was about 2.5 million to about 11,000 years ago. Horses have really cool teeth in that they grow up their whole lives. They never stop growing. And so horse teeth are a really cool thing that we find here in Florida a lot. The other kind of fossil that we have here in Florida, it's called a trace fossil. So these are things the animal left behind. Think footprints, think eggshells or nests, but they also leave behind poop. And when poop fossilizes, it's called a coprolite. And there's a lot that we can learn from it. So this is a big coprolite here. This is probably from a crocodile, we think, based on the size and the shape. And there are people who spend their whole careers just studying coprolites or fossilized poop. And that's because they're really important. So sometimes we find fossils within the coprolites, like bones or teeth of other animals. And so this actually tells us a lot about how animals were interacting and behaving with each other many, many years ago. So this is a really, really important fossil that we have here. Now, most of the fossils that we find here in Florida are from the Pleistocene. I mentioned that earlier. So those are all those really megafauna, the mammoths and mastodons, giant ground sloths, and armadillos, and all kinds of those really big animals. But
and wait, actually, so about how long ago was the Pleistocene era?
Great question. So the Pleistocene was 2.5 million years ago, up until about 11 to 12,000 years ago. And that's when the Pleistocene extinction happened. So that's when all of those big animals went extinct. Still not exactly quite sure why they all went extinct. Right now, the most common theory is that it was a mix between human hunting and the climate change getting warmer. So we're not quite sure. So, any other questions? Okay. So, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is dinosaur fossils. Do we have them here in Florida? And the truth is, yes, we do, because birds are dinosaurs. So it's a little bit of a kind of a gotcha statement. But when we think of dinosaurs, most of us think of T-Rex, Triceratops, all of those guys that went extinct 66 million years ago. And 66 million years ago, Florida was actually underwater. So we don't have any dinosaur fossils that are from what we call non-avian dinosaurs. But the avian dinosaurs, those are birds. We do have birds here in Florida. At one point we had giant terror birds that were terrifying. And so we do find dinosaur fossils here in Florida. They're just not the ones that we usually think of. I will tell you that the most common fossil found here in Florida, one that you may even find in your backyard if you're lucky enough, is from an animal that looks kind of like a manatee, but isn't really. And this is an animal called a dugong. Dugongs still live in Australia today. They look like a manatee, but they have a tail that's shaped like a dolphin, so it's a split tail. And they have a snout that kind of extends further down. And the fossils you'll find of them are their rib bones. So I have a few of those here. I'm going to show you. So these are 2 pieces of dugong rib bones. Manatees and dugongs are unique in that their rib bones have no marrow in them. So they're very heavy, they're very dense, which makes them, or they preserve easier because of that. But you'll also find them in fragments. And this is because as that animal's getting buried, remember we talked about how all that sediment kind of piles on top of each other, they'll actually break and get fractured under the weight of all of that soil. So you usually just find little fragments. But you can tell if it's a dugong or another type of sirenian by the shape. So they're kind of about this wide, and they of course are shaped like ribs. But if you're lucky enough to find one that is this white material, it actually has a tree ring-like structure. It may be difficult to see on camera, but they look like little tree rings, like growth rings. And you may be wondering, why is this one white and this one black? So fossils are different colors based on the minerals that were in the water that help them fossilize. So a lot of the fossils that we have here in Florida are black because of all the phosphate that we have, especially in the along the Gulf Coast. So that's also why a lot of shark teeth that we find here in Florida are also very dark as well. This is a Megalodon tooth, or a cast of one. So this was modeled after a real tooth that was found. Megalodon, for those of you that don't know, is the largest shark to have ever lived. It lived here millions of years ago, went extinct about 2.5 million years ago, but we still find its teeth all over the state of Florida because Florida was underwater for so long. So there were so many animals kind of swimming where we're living now, and because sharks can lose 50,000 teeth in their lifetime, that's why we find so many shark teeth here, and why Venice Beach is the shark tooth capital of the world. It's because all of these ancient sharks that were living here millions of years ago. Okay. Do we have any questions of it until this point?
No questions. No questions so far, but people are talking about how much they're enjoying, how cool the information is. Yeah.
We have a few other pieces of here, fossils that are a little bit unique. This one here is petrified wood. So we've been talking about animals thus far, but plants can fossilize as well. And it's really a similar process. The tree would have died, it would have been buried, water kind of seeps in and fills all these gaps, and it has this really nice kind of crystal structure. We'll bring it around here to show you. So So you can see that the sides it still looks like a tree on the sides here, but if you flip it over, it looks like a stone, like a pretty gemstone, and that's all of the crystallization that has happened. Another really popular one, especially among collectors, is this. This is agatized coral. This is actually our state stone here in Florida, and this one, unlike other fossilization that can take, a minimum of 10,000 years, this process takes at least 20 to 30 million years to happen. So that's why these are so kind of sought after by people. I mean, one, they're beautiful, and they take a really long time. So this was a kind of coral skeleton. So corals are kind of this weird combination where animals and plants work together, but this was the skeleton of all the coral polyps. Again, coral dies, it gets buried, and all of these minerals are kind of precipitated or kind of come out of the water, and over time they create this really beautiful structure. And depending on, again, what's in the water, it could be white or purple or blue. It just depends on the environment in which it was buried. Let's see.
So we actually do have a question.
Oh, okay, great.
Somebody here wants to know, how old is our oldest fossil at the museum?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I can't give you a definitive answer because we haven't been able to age everything. But if I had to guess, we have a slab of fossils of, they're called belemnites, which they were an ancestor to the squid, and they lived between 500 and 200 million years ago.
Wow.
So because this piece has been kind of removed from the ground, we can't really date exactly where it was, but they could be the oldest fossil in the museum.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty old, 500 million years.
So I know that some of the other animals that it's possible to find around Florida, they may not be common, but Mastodon certainly are one of the Florida fossil. And we actually have a casting of an almost intact Mastodon here at the museum.
We do, yeah. So we have a full cast of a Mastodon skeleton. Its nickname is Priscilla. This animal is a bit unique because it was found in a sinkhole, which is great for preservation. There's a lot of sinkholes up near the Gainesville area and the Osceola River. That's where this particular one was found. But what's unique about Priscilla is it's one of the largest Mastodon skeletons ever found in North America.
Wow.
So it's quite an impressive fossil for sure.
And we have another question from Alicia. She wants to know how old is the dugong fossil that you were holding up earlier?
Oh, okay. So dugongs. So again, we can only estimate about a range. The best way to date how old a fossil is one through radiocarbon dating, depending on how old it is, or if you can date the rock that it's found in, that gives you a pretty good idea. Because we don't know exactly where these guys came from, I can give you a range between about 14 and 7 million years old. That's when we know dugongs were here swimming around where we are now. So that's what we can estimate too. The interesting thing is, so dugongs and manatees didn't exist here at the same time. So dugongs were here, or their ancestor was here 14 to 7 million years ago, and then they eventually went extinct here, but they survived in other places. But we don't see modern manatees arrive in Florida until about 1 million years ago.
Really?
So there was a bit of a gap where we didn't have any manatees or dugongs.
Oh my gosh, that is really funny. Well, and going back to our other discussion, so, and some of the other fossils that I know have been found here in Florida, SaberCat.
Yes. So saber-toothed cats were found here in Florida.
Okay.
We actually had a piece of one found here in Manatee County, not too far from
That's
the museum.
amazing.
And so that was part of our inspiration for the backyard. We have our fossil dig pit.
So this is the Mosaic Backyard Universe.
Yeah, sorry. The Mosaic Backyard Universe. We have a real deal kind of fossil dig pit, and we decided to put a full saber-toothed cat skeleton in there. These guys really did live here. They're such an iconic, wow, Ice Age animal, so it's really exciting.
Okay, so Jennifer wants to know, how do we get our fossils? Are they all donated, or do we go
most information if we can study them where they were found.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. So there's a lot of confusion, I think, between archaeology and paleontology.
Yes.
So can you just go over the difference really quickly?
Right, yeah. So paleontology is about studying fossils. And it's about studying fossils of plants and animals, where archaeology is about studying past human cultures. And so really one is dealing with plants and animals, and one is dealing with humans.
Yeah, the difference between objects and artifacts, maybe?
So, well, objects and artifacts. So, basically, objects that are made by humans are artifacts.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of one of those things where all artifacts are objects, but not all objects are artifacts.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and and sometimes fossils have actually been manipulated by people. So it's kind of a weird kind of combo where something like if an agatized coral was somehow modified to create a sharp edge for people to, cut things or whatnot, this, was once a fossil, it's now become an artifact. And so it's important to keep that in mind when you're looking for fossils. We're also interested about people that came before us and what they were like.
Definitely.
And we can only do that through finding what they left behind.
We have another question from Rachel. So going back to the Belemnites from maybe 500 million years ago. She wants to know, were those soft bodied or did they have bones?
Okay, really good question. So, so squids are unique in that they are mostly like cartilaginous, except they have something called a pen, which would be kind of analogous to our backbone, but it's not really a thick bone. It's a very thin kind of tube of chitin, and so those are modern squid. Ancient squid, kind of the ancestors of them, did have kind of a bony kind of spear at the end. So when we think of squid, they're kind of pointed at the top and then get larger.
Yeah.
And so these Belemnites, what actually was able to fossilize was that kind of hard part that would eventually kind of evolve, or was kind of the precursor to the pen that was in the modern squid.
Oh.
So squid kind of went from really, really bony to not so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stacy wants to know, this is a strictly Ashley Bird opinion.
Okay.
What is your most impressive fossil in your opinion and why?
Oh, that's a really good question.
You're asking her her favorite fossils, like asking her to choose among her children. Really?
My favorite fossil, oh gosh. I think it might be the Belemnites, only because they can be so old and there's something just really awe-inspiring about touching or looking at something that could be that old. It's kind of like how people feel awe when they go to our planetarium and they realize how much bigger the universe is than we initially thought. When we talk about fossils, it can be kind of crazy to think about things in terms of millions of years.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about something being hundreds of millions of years, it just kind of has like a mind blown moment.
Definitely.
So I think they may be my favorite fossil.
Cool. All right. Jennifer wants to know, where did you go to school to do what you do?
Okay. So I took a little bit of a roundabout tour to get here. My background is actually in marine biology. I did my bachelor's at Florida Gulf Coast University, go Eagles, and then my master's is actually in marine mammal science. I went to the University of Miami, so go Canes. And I started working here at the museum in the manatee rehabilitation habitat. Really fell in love with all of the science that happens here and that we get to share with people. And so, I didn't really learn about fossils in school. It's all been, while I was here and just been really interested in chatting with our staff that's here. And so my main duties every day are I manage the content for our mobile app that we have. Our app is called Pathways. If you'd like to search it in the App Store, you need to search for Bishop Pathways.
And it's free, by the way.
It's free, and the best thing about it right now is you can access all the content from home.
Yeah.
And so the purpose of the app was to kind of connect all of our unique and interesting objects in interesting stories and think about them in ways that maybe isn't presented in the museum. So we're connecting manatees and mastodons and artifacts and fossils and all kinds of things. So it's like you can tour the museum from your very own home.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there fossils at the museum that people
to the saber-tooth cat that is in there. We actually have some loose fossils of things that are readily found here. If you or your child finds a fossil that they just can't imagine parting with, you do get to take it home.
Wow, that's really amazing.
So
actually.
we just want to inspire a new generation of learners and want people to start thinking about what the world was like long before we were here and what we can learn from them. So anything we can do to inspire that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us today on Facebook Live. Keep tuning in all week. We are going to have some sort of Facebook cool experience every day, every weekday at noon. So be sure to mark your calendars to give you a notification and tune in every day. Ashley, thank you. This has really been interesting. Good stuff.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.